Hello and welcome back to my first real episode, real vlog. I don't know what you're going to call this. We'll call it a chat or a conversation with, realistically myself. But um, I've had a great day. A fluctuational day. Sometimes life catches up with you, the realities and the difficulties of life, and it's tough. It's tough to go on. I've had a lot of little moments towards the end that just kind of reignited some energy and great conversations with people that amazing people that I just am lucky to meet. And I think if we were more receptive to that, I think you'd realize there's so many amazing people out there to meet, and you'll meet more. And I mean, most people you meet are probably amazing if you got the chance to dig in. And I mean, it really starts for me and to be in the right mindset, and people. I get to see the beauty that is in that person, and so it's a goal of mine to try and be that way. I fail sometimes, I'm only human, so I'm trying. But today I wanted to talk about, just brainstorm or talk about the idea, artificial intelligence. And I should start this off by saying I would not be considered an expert in any real field of study. Maybe film, filmmaking, or I went to film school for a little bit. I didn't graduate, but I did go for 3 years. I learned a lot, but it doesn't make me any expert in anything. I don't feel like an expert in anything. I just am a curious person, and I love learning as much about everything as I can, and I try to grasp the basic concepts of anything that I try to learn. Am I right? Maybe. A lot of my stuff is when I learn new principles or concepts, it sparks creativity in my mind, and then I'm able to just kind of go crazy with it, which I love doing. I don't think that's a bad thing. So like a real-time daydream is what I call it. So now that that's off the table, we know that I'm not any pro expert or anything. I'm just a curious mind who has access to the internet, which is a very powerful combination, I believe. But I'm not going to be able to cite everything. If I need to get better at doing that, or maybe putting some reference videos if I can remember what they were. I have a lot of notes, but they're just notes and ideas that I have. So I just want to talk today about artificial intelligence and the hoopla behind it all. What is it? Everyone knows what it is. Is it a reality? Are we close? And much smarter people, men and women, than me, have incredible opinions about this, and some would say we're close, some would say we're really far, and some would say, who knows? I'm of the mindset that I don't think you can truly. You could try to predict, but I don't think you can truly ever know for sure if we're close or not. And what I mean by this is we don't quite know the parameters for life or the parameters for consciousness. We don't know what has to happen in order for consciousness to take place, other than the processes that we can observe in nature itself, and the organization of a sperm and an egg, and the combination of DNA, and the replication and the growth of life. And at what moment is life there? Well, technically, there's always life there. If you define life as something, I need to turn my screensaver off. I'm in power save mode, so I just blacked out. I'm using my screen as light, as you've noticed. So a life can be as simple as a single-cell organism. Well, in that case, life is, of course, it's at inception. It's before inception. It's before the two combine. That's life. So, but what's the parameters? Like what? Like we study chemical evolution. We study evolution. At what point did life hit? What point did it say, "This is my purpose is to reproduce life"? What is it? It's a mystery, right? There's some people might say they have some theories. I'm sure there's some awesome ones out there, and maybe the answer's out there, but maybe it's not. So I'm playing from a very skeptical side of how do you know we're close to artificial intelligence? Well, when did life first come to be? What are the parameters to be self-aware? Is it take this complex of a brain, or are more simpler brains aware of their existence? I would argue that much simpler brains are aware of their existence. How simple is what's the limit? The mystery is there. All right. Computers, software has been shown to be able to solve incredibly difficult problems in incredibly fast times, and so fast so that it's put humanity on a path of growth that is spiking so much, right? It's like it's almost whatever we predict, we're always way behind of what we'll be, or sometimes maybe way too far ahead. But who knows? And we're moving fast. Technology is moving fast with the help of computers, software, automation, the ability to use processors to process complex amounts of data, and now we're starting to see a new type of process, which is what makes me think that if there was such a thing as close, we're closer. Where's that limit? Where's the singularity in time? I don't know. I'll go into more detail of what I truly believe, but let me first say where we're at. So I was watching some videos so this is a sighting, Cold Fusion, great YouTube channel. He's very well researched, and he does, I think, cite a lot of his sources, which is great, and that is a YouTube channel that I absolutely love. But he talked about, so I'm going to consult my notes because I remember it stuck out to me so strongly that I had to write it down. Generative adversarial networks. So we're making neural networks with AI. We've learned so much from our own brain and the way we process data that we can, using code, make similar things. Deep minds, deep neural networks where they have just a depth of knowledge and access to data that we just didn't have before. The internet is a neural network, and it is, seemingly infinite, but I'm sure obviously it's finite. But so generative adversarial networks are two AIs programmed to correct each other, self-correcting, self-learning network. And so I was learning about this from Cold Fusion. He explains it, and what kept coming to my mind was, I remember one time I got so fascinated about our bihemispherical brain. Why do we have two hemispheres in our brain? And there's a lot of reasons why. I found this great website. And once again, I'm going to cite it. I should put it in the description. I hope I remember to do that. Where's my website here? This is real time, folks. This is raw. That's how you know how raw it is. Okay. One brain, two minds. Brainduality.com. Fascinating, fascinating website. All about the multiple hemispheres, the dual hemispheres of our mind, why it exists, how it evolved, what's the importance of it, what controls what, why is, and you know, we all are aware of ourselves in such a way that when we have conversations with ourselves, decisions that we make are run through, you know, both hemispheres, and it's usually a nice, hopefully, a nice middle ground between the two. If you're all left brain or all right brain, I know that's so simplistic ways to talk. Here we go. If you're all right brain, you're all left brain, you know, you would be considered maybe imbalanced. Is that bad or is that unhealthy? I don't know. Maybe not, maybe so. But we always are finding ourselves talking to ourselves in our head, talking to someone. Who are we talking to? If I'm me, who am I talking to? Damn, why did I do that? Damn, I should have said this. Here's a choice to make. Should I do this or should I do that? What is the best choice? We are a generative adversarial network. And that kept coming to my mind when I was learning about this. And that's where we're at in artificial intelligence. So these two AIs are having a conversation with themselves to solve problems in a way that one may not be able to do by itself. And then that kind of like hit me in a kind of a eureka moment, like, oh, that seems to be down the right path towards what one could consider truly artificial intelligence. And then I was thinking about tying it all together with quantum computers. So quantum computers can solve complex problems. What are quantum computers? Well, there's a plethora, lately in particular, because of what China was able to do, using quantum entanglement to send messages, and now we're in this quantum revolution, and you have people like saying like whoever controls. Well, anyway, we won't get too far off topic. Quantum computers essentially boil down to, instead of relying on bits of ones and zeros, which are separate to process large amounts of data, which it works well, and we still haven't reached the cap. But Moore's law does say there will be a limit to just physically to what we can stick onto silicon, how many transistors and how many bits we can put on a microchip. So what quantum computing does is it uses qubits, which, using principles in quantum mechanics, you have a qubit which is in position of, it's a superposition. It exists as multiple states at once, or one state at one time, or it's all of them. It can be all of them simultaneously. It's really weird, which is why it's weird. Quantum mechanics is weird or spooky. But yeah, so it can solve much more complex problems with much less bits, qubits. Well, so I thought about that, and then I thought about what we are, what our brain is. As a problem solvers, we don't have a computer that can solve problems the way a human being can, and I think that's the real test of artificial intelligence, is when we have software and programs solving problems at a level that human beings are solving them, then we should start to really, I personally believe we should be scared now. Not scared, but at least have respect or reverence, whatever you want to call it, whatever the term is, but at least a kind of respect or an understanding of where we're going and what we're doing as a species. So humans, using just a ton of information that we've stored in our brains, I mean, your base, your database. The human's everyone has a different database. There's an infinite amount of databases out there with a human mind. My brain may have a foundational data that's so different that there will never be another one, or maybe statistically there is someone exactly like that. Who knows? So all that data that we collect, all the life lessons, all the things we remember, all the science, 8th grade science class things that come to our mind at the time, all of that exists, and we can pull upon that in such a way that when a new problem arises, we can come up with a solution, or at least, maybe not the proper one, but we can think in very complex ways. We exist, with all of these memories, all these data, and what I would consider a state of superposition. Human mind is a superposition kind of qubit, much more advanced, obviously, or a bunch of qubits. And I remember talking to someone who works in the he works with AI in self-driving cars. And I asked him, I said, what's the biggest hurdle of self-driving cars? And he said, planning for exotic events. That was the word he used, exotic events. And I remember like, well, what's an exotic event? Well, we as human beings run into them on a daily basis. On a daily basis, something will happen that's unplanned for. You can't see it coming. It just happens, and we react accordingly based on all of our knowledge as a human. And a car has finite instructions with data that it's collecting, and there's real-time data collection, and it does have a large base of data, and it does have access to the internet and GPS satellites. However, there are still exotic events that the car, the computer, the software is just not going to be able to handle. And what we're doing is basically trying to program a solution for everything we can think of, but there's always something that's going to happen that we can't think of, and that's what reality is. So imagine if the car could react in a way like us. Well, I think when you start to see a fusion, a merger between quantum computing and generative adversarial networks, we will see the birth of true AI. But once again, who knows? Maybe it's already happened. Probably not. But I'm reminded of how a child grows up. When a human infant is born, let's talk about humans this way, the baby is so new, and there are not a lot of neural connections, neural pathways. It's a fresh brain. It's new. There's some, obviously, but it's constantly making new ones. And why does it make new neural? We teach it. We have to teach it about the world. We program these little babies. We program the children. We say, this is gravity. If you fall, it's going to hurt. If you touch this, it's going to be hot. We're literally programming at the base level, because babies cannot plan for exotic events. You cannot ask a baby to solve complex problems, which is why they need such tremendous care. And it just so happens that their minds are the most plastic when they're very young. Their minds are just a fresh, ready to learn, eager, curious, want to know everything type of program. Collect as much data as possible, which is why babies are always sticking stuff in their mouth, because your hands only have whoopsie doodles. I'll fix this. I'll fix that for my next video, which is why they put things in their mouth, because fingers have they have nerves on them connected to your nervous system. So they can do a lot of sensation, a lot of touch, but there's so many other nerves in here too. Taste buds, a whole bunch of other tools that we can use. So maybe they want to know what else they can do with it. So it's a very, children are very programmable, which sounds terrible, but which is, so my point being, it's a process. You cannot have an Einstein, this mind that can synapse in ways, I mean, it's solve problems or see solutions or paint a clearer picture of our world, our reality, without first this very base level platform of an infant. And it builds, it progresses. Some progress faster, some progress slower. I would consider myself a slow progressor, but I'm progressing nonetheless. So who's to say we're not at some phase? I mean, to me, computers already show problem-solving skills at levels that we would consider genius in the human world. But, like, are they fully independent? No, not yet. So maybe, AI is still in its infant stage. It's not maybe, it is in its infant stage. It's in its infant stage. So we do have to, I think we need to think about artificial intelligence the same way we think of children. And we know from experience, tons of psychology out there, that children, there's a lot of problems and psychological issues that stem from their children, from their past, from how they were raised. We all have them. And some of the hardest parts about being an adult, I mean, that I've found anyway, is fixing, debugging the programming from your early years and realizing, oh no, you don't have to think this way, right? Challenging this thought. So as a species, unfortunately, I think we're giving birth to something, or we're not giving birth, I think it's birthed. I think we're raising something that, I mean, the same issue with parents, if the parents aren't on the same team, and you have a dysfunctional parents, well, you're going to raise a dysfunctional, I mean, there's a high probability that you'll raise a dysfunctional child. And the word dysfunctional just means not able to function in ways that we would consider humane, or, I mean, the word sociopath comes to mind, lack of empathy. People are scared of an AI with no empathy. Well, there are humans out there right now roaming the world with no empathy already. And to be honest, that's terrifying. And if we can't come together as a human species, I feel like there are two outcomes for AI. And I love Elon Musk. He's one of my heroes, and I like how he talks about a synergy between us and machine, a hybrid. And I think that's how we need to look at it. Is like the species should unify. Why? Well, because, I mean, there's so many benefits of cooperation. It doesn't mean you have to give up your identity. You just got to have similar goals. And I think we all do. We all want to be happy. We all want to be good people. We all want to leave, the world better than we left it. Everyone says this. But what does it truly mean to do that? So after 24 minutes, I'm looking at the clock. Sorry, I've been rambling. But those are my thoughts on artificial intelligence. Is we are already on the process. We've already set in motion. It's set in motion. It's happening. So now, how do we do it in a healthy way, in a functional way? And I think the only way to really get a handle on, Elon Musk says we should have regulated for AI a long time ago. And it's funny because so many people scoff, and I mean, you can hear it sometimes in the interviews, in the articles, and the way it's publicly talked about. It's kind of it's like it's so silly. It's so silly, so silly. You know what to me is more silly than the idea of artificial intelligence is the idea of regular intelligence. The idea that we came from what? Where did life come from? Any answer that you receive of where we came from, someone will think is silly. Who's right? Religious people? People who believe in God? A God? Life came from that? Or atheistic, scientific, life just happened. It very well could have. But either way, it's kind of silly because there's so many questions of why. And why ask why when here we are? Let's just make the best of it. I encourage anyone to look up some of the YouTube channels that inspire me. I will put some in the links just because I love them. That Cold Fusion channel is absolutely mind-blowing sometimes. I've learned a lot about AI just in listening to different episodes on the channel Big Think, and different documentaries I've seen from it's just. But yeah, so those are my thoughts. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. Thank you for watching. If you lasted 27 minutes, if you didn't, I don't blame you. That's a long time in today's attention span lacking society. So thank you. And if not, if you come back to it, feel free to maybe listen to it another time. If it wandered off too much, I'm sorry. But thank you so much, and take care.